Eric Crawford here with Ultra Pure Systems. Today we're going to be changing out the float that is inside the wall-mounted direct humidifiers. It doesn't matter what humidifier you have, either the smallest one, which we're going to be using today, or even the largest, the 17.6. The float resides in the same part of the humidifier, so that works out really well. In years past, we have found, and it hasn't happened a lot, but it has happened enough that we're going to do our best to be proactive and help out as much as we can from afar, that if this does happen with the float, these are the symptoms that we have found most talking to customers and our mechanical company that has helped us greatly figure this out on our own. The float inside the humidifier is a 3-wire connection, so there's a high float and a low float, and of course a common. And what happens is when that float goes down to a certain level, it calls for water and it fills up to the top and then it shuts off. Pretty self-explanatory. But what happens somewhere in there is through the on and off and the proportional control that float loses sight of where it actually is. And because of that, the transducers don't turn on, which is good. There's no damage to the humidifier, but it doesn't recognize that the water level is proper, and it just doesn't turn on the transducers. So there's some parameters on the back end that Ultra Pure is different than the manufacturers, and that can also play into it, but we do it to really conserve water and be as cognizant for draining water as we can. So with all that being said, you're going to need a little patience doing this because it's nested really far into the humidifier, and you'll need some just basic tools. A needle nose pliers, you'll need cutters to remove a couple wire ties, and a couple different Phillips head screwdrivers. So in that standpoint, you don't need a lot of tools to do this. You just really need patience. So without any delay, let's jump right into it. Okay, now that this humidifier is off the wall, it's in a secure place on a bench. The first thing we're going to want to do is, with the Phillips head screwdriver, is remove the 2 screws on top of the humidifier. Once you get those on back of the humidifier, I'm going to turn this around so you can see it. It's probably going to be a little easier than the side camera. You could put these a little easier if you put those little screws in order, starting from top and work back. On the back of the humidifier, there are also 4 screws. 2 screws on back as well. It's on the bottom, there's 4 screws. So let's get those out. Okay. On the bottom of the humidifier, what we're going to want to do, those side panels are loose now, so you can just hold those in. But on the back of the humidifier, there's going to be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this humidifier is brand new out of the box from CAREL. We did this really just for the video. The only difference, a couple differences on the CAREL humidifiers. We removed the 2 screws on the bottom of our humidifiers on both sides here. Let me show you the reason we do that. The screw here and the screw here, if we leave those in there, what it makes it very difficult to do in the future is to remove the side panels, because our units are shipped with the secondary containment trays, and it's so close to the bottom, you're not going to be able to get anything in there to get these screws out. So we leave those screws out. So disregard those 2 on your units. You don't need those. So at that point, you've got the front, the top, the back, and the bottom screws removed. You can set it back into place. And from the back side, all you're going to do is just lift up. And lift up just a little bit. At that point, you're going to be able to remove the side panels. I removed these grounding wires just for this. Just seems to make it a little easier. So if we set that on the side, Do the same thing here. If you lift up a little bit, I already did that. You're going to want to pull this one off. Set that on the side. And there's one more grounding wire inside the cabinet. I'll try to show you here. It's right here. Let's see where we are. It's just a grounding wire that you're going to want to remove off the back panel. So with the Phillips head screwdriver. And again, you don't have to do this. It just makes it a little cleaner on the installation. Sometimes easier just to remove these than have to find room for them on the bench and so forth. So at that point, all you have to do is just lift this up, lift the top panel up enough where this back panel just pulls out. The only thing that we're going to have on our UltraPure units at your facility is a bulkhead for the inlet fill valve. And to remove that, you'll just push the gray clevis in on the JG fitting and pull out. There's also a video on how to do that, but once you push the clevis in on the JG fitting and then pull out at the same time, this whole back panel at that point is going to come off. Okay, so you can just set that aside and slowly just wiggle the top panel up to a point where it's loose. Push the front panel forward enough that you can turn the nozzles 90 degrees approximately, and you'll feel it. There's little notches that hold it in place so they don't fall over. So you're just going to want to remove those. And now the nozzles are out. At that point, it's really easy. A couple people can do this with this small humidifier. It's real easy. But the larger humidifiers, you may want to get two people. You're going to want to hold the white case and then lift the frame of the humidifier, and the whole humidifier will come out, which is really nice. In years past, this has been really difficult to do with other manufacturers, just to service. It's just really difficult. These just are so nice because everything is visible at this point. So, including the transducers, which we're going to have another video on. So what I'm interested in today is this base inside here is where your transducers are and also where the float is. So the first thing we're going to want to do is remove the Phillips head screws with the stainless washers. I'm not exactly sure why the factory used galvanized screws versus stainless screws. If you would like, we can send you stainless screws and at no charge. The factory is using stainless steel screws now, but on these older humidifiers, they were using galvanized with stainless washers, which is really odd. And on the back of the humidifier as well, on the back of the basin, there are a couple Phillips heads. You're going to want to remove this one right here, and I'm not sure if you can see this with this wire in the way, but there also is a Phillips head screw right there. So we're going to want to remove that one and just put that on the side. Remove this last one. And now the top of the basin is loose. The only thing we're going to need to do is, from the factory, they've done best job they can as far as protecting the wires, and they've put a zip tie right there. So we're going to want to remove that zip tie. And behind that zip tie is a Molex connector for the fan. So if you could see that. All we're going to want to do is we're going to want to unplug that fan, and in that too there's going to be another plug. This plug is used if there's more fans, so we don't use this one. Don't worry about it. We're just going to use the one that came plugged in, so you can just tuck that in when we're done. So if we turn the humidifier around and set it on its back, this is the same way that there is another zip tie holding this together. So you're just going to make sure when you cut these wire or cut the zip ties, you don't cut the wires. And there's a couple of them in here, so you're just going to want to cut those loose. Get the zip ties out. And where this fan is right here, you're just going to want to go down until you can see where that plugs in. And the same thing, there's another plug here. It's just when they're longer humidifiers, they just run these fans in parallel. So just unplug it, and that's all. So now your fans are loose, so we can set it up, turn it around so you can see it. And this one's a little tricky, but you'll get it. It just has a couple notches on it that make it a little more difficult to pull out, but just finagling it enough to where it just comes out. Once it does, you'll know it right away. It's just sometimes a little booger there. All right, so there that is right there. So now that that's out, you could just set that to the side. I'm going to turn this humidifier around so you can see exactly what we're doing inside the base of the humidifier. Hopefully you'll see that this is the float that we're interested in right here. So the first thing we're going to want to do, if on the side, just see where that float comes out of the wire of the plug on the side, the wiring harness on the side. You're just going to want to unplug it. Because that wiring plug that goes through the basin, it's not that large, you can't get this Molex connector through it. So what we have to do is we have to cut that, save this because it's very important, and just loosen it a little bit, and then you're just going to pull it through. Pretty simple. Okay. If you could turn that little hex nut, great. If not, that's where your needle nose pliers comes in really handy. You're just going to want to unscrew that. First thing that comes off is that. Second thing that comes off is a splash guard. And then you can just pull that float through and disregard this float. The new float is really nice. It's a very nice assembly they put together here, and it comes in a little bag. We have them in Arizona. More than happy to ship them to you. Once you open that up, it will. There's a few different pieces in here. We have the float itself, the new float. We have a new Molex connector. We have a new hex nut, and we have a little neoprene O-ring. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get that new float and just push it through. Be really careful with this stainless steel. It's definitely sharp in areas, so be careful with that. You may want to wear gloves. The second thing, be very careful with this. This has to go on. If this splash guard doesn't go on, we're not going to be able to use this float much longer, and I'll show you why. So you'll put that splash guard on there, and if you want, you could put this little neoprene O-ring on there. It doesn't matter. It's a little more. It makes it a little more difficult to get over the threads of the float, but it definitely works and it holds it into place. So you could put that on there. And then lastly is your little hex nut. I'm sorry. You're going to want to put that on there, and we are almost done. So get that, and just turn it. Pretty simple. You're going to make sure that's really, really tight, as tight as you can. Hand tight, even maybe with the needle nose. Do it one little crank turn. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to want to push it through this side electrical connector. It's easier to push it than honestly pull it, so you don't pull those pins off. But push and pull, it works pretty well. And you're just going to want to make that a nice 90 turn. Nothing really specific, but you're just going to want to make it a nice a nice radius turn if you can. This is where it gets really, really important. Best way I can explain this is you have your old plug that you cut off, and you've got a new Molex plug. What you're going to want to do is find the top. There's a notch on it, and you're going to want to put those notches right next to each other. So with your thumb, your index, and your middle finger, you're going to want to put a hold on to them just the way you see them here. 45s are both on the bottom, and then the notches are on top. From there, you're going to put those wires in the same way that are on the older plug. So it's very important. The problem is with these Molex connectors, you got one time, and if you get them wrong, you can't do it over. You can, but the tool is more than the whole assembly kit here. So you're just going to want to. So the top is black. Both of them are black. It's common, I guess you'd call that. And you don't want to push those in. If they don't push in very easy and clip, you don't have the pin in the right configuration. So just turn the pin 90 degrees until it just slides in and clips. And you'll hear it and you'll feel it. So the bottom left, the way I have these, is red. And we're going to go red on the bottom. And again, just pushes in. Very, very easy. And you could pull out and it doesn't pull out. That tells you you caught that little pin inside there, or little anchor inside there that catches the pin itself. So same thing. So on the right hand side on this one I have white, and I'm just going to push that in, and if I could pull it out, I didn't push it far enough in. So pretty straightforward, but just take your time on this, because again, once these pins are in here, you're not going to be able to get them out. So when that's done, pins are in, you plug this back in. In this case, we have two, so we're just going to want to plug that in here, and that is all she wrote. This one that will turn over, we're going to put the fan on, but for now, you've got that in there. If you have wire ties, it's always nice to try to keep things. We're not going to use this. This was already bundled up. So to keep it, the way the factory sent it to you, if you have a wire tie, you can definitely use that. Makes it, keeps it clean. But if you don't, you can just neatly tuck the wires back in. Okay. So now we're done with the float. What we'll do here is just turn it around, and the larger of the two fans goes in, or the larger of the fan goes on front of the humidifier, and basically all you do is you just set it right on top of it, and you'll find the spacing for it. And with the Phillips head screwdriver, you're going to want to start putting those Phillips head. And again, we could send you stainless if time permits. We're more than happy to do that. What we found on much older humidifiers, depending on the water, those galvanized screws can rust out, and can be a challenge servicing the unit in the future if you have to get into this basin when those are rusted out. So we're more than happy to send out to you. And again, CAREL has done a great job. They've already switched that up, so you may already have stainless, but just in case. So there's your 4 Phillips head screwdriver, or 4 Phillips head top screws. Remember to get your washers on there. Not a big deal, but I actually forgot it on that one, so let's take that out real quick. And set that back in. Yeah, we are almost at the end of this, so if you're interested, I could turn this humidifier around just so you'll see it, but There is the humidistat that controls this humidifier if it is a standalone humidification that you don't have an auxiliary signal or a remote humidistat, which is also an offering. On the back of the humidifier, there is a humidistat right here. So if you can see that, it's right here, and that's actually what's sensing the relative humidity and the temperature. And if you like, you can control by dew point. So we're going to plug this back in. We're going to plug this fan back in. And if you want to be really certain, you could get a Sharpie and put them in black or blue on both of them so you know where those go. It's another good way of making sure that your plugs are right. You're going to want to tuck that other one back since we don't use that other one. And on the front fan, we are going to find this, and that I already wire tied it, but that's all we're going to do on that is just find right there, and that is all she wrote. So let me put one more zip tie on here. Try to keep the wiring as neat as we can. Zip ties do a great job with that. Okay, so that can go on the side, and now we are done. So the only thing we're going to want to do is reverse order the case that came off of here. So with the white case that we took off, you're just going to want to hold it in front. If you want a couple people, you're just going to want to lift the assembly and set it back down into the white case. Pretty straightforward. The back panel, the stainless back panel, there's notches on the bottom. The notches are going to go to where the frame is on the humidifier. Well, you're going to want to connect the inlet water valve with the bulkhead, and at that point, all you really have to do is this white cover here actually goes over the fan. So that needs to just go up and over. So just pull it up and back, and then it will go over. But before we do that, let's put the nozzles back in. You're going to start on the far inside rear, and you're just going to want to set that in there real lightly. And then you can do the front, the smaller of the two nozzles. And then you're going to want to do the back on the second, and leave it at a 90 till you're done, and then do the same thing with the front. And that's all there is on that. So now your nozzles are in. You're going to want to lift up slightly, get it past that fan, and at that point, if you could see here, you're just going to want to pull back and down. That's really all there is to it. Okay. We could start anywhere to put the screws back in, but since we just reverse order here, if we turn it around, and we got our Phillips head screwdriver, these can be a little tricky just because I don't see where the threads are, but what I've found works best when this happens is just tilt it back a little bit. You'll see where your threads are inside, and that makes it a little easier. You're going to want to do the same thing on this side. Same thing, just look inside and you'll see where your threads are. And of course, this is attaching the humidifier to the back panel to the humidifier. So there's those two. If we turned it around one more time and set it on its back very gently, we're going to do the same exact thing on the bottom four. If they go all the way in, you can tell you're not on the threads. So just kind of play around with it. You'll find it. I guess you could also use a very small screwdriver and push it through the threads, and align it that way, or maybe like an ice pick or something. You're just going to want to align them. As you see, I didn't really do a lot there, and it worked fine. So geez, I say that, and there's this last one that's being a... There we go. So just make sure those are tight, because that is essentially holding the humidifier to the white cabinet, the white case. Now you could set it up. And the last thing that we have here is the ground that we need to attach inside that we took off the back. And again, you didn't really have to take that off. It just, like I said, it just makes it a little cleaner, a little easier to play around. It's kind of a frustrating replacement. There's not any other part in this humidifier that requires this amount of effort. The factory's done such a great job when it comes to being able to service these humidifiers by just taking off the white case. And if you wanted to watch the other videos on changing the transducers, it's just as easy. So on this one, you just want to make sure you put the right panel on, because these are directional panels. So that goes here, and we're going to want to put this. Just make sure when you do this that this grounding wire is facing down or up. If it's facing out, it's going to be a little more challenging to get that side panel on. Okay. There's also little notches on the bottom that you're going to want to line up, and that makes it a little easier to... Okay, so now that we've got the humidifier all buckled together, it's all tightened up, all the screws are put back in it, your humidifier is ready to go back on the wall. You should not have to do anything with the parameters at this point. Really just reverse order installing the humidifier and you should be all set. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was enough that it gave you the content to be able to do this on your own. If you like the video, please share it. If you have concerns, or if you'd like to leave a comment, go ahead and leave a comment on the bottom. If you have any questions at all, feel free to call us, 1-800-729-5192, or you could always email us at info@ultrapureus.com. Thanks so much for watching.